Is there an ethical way, a truly ethical way to create true crime content online? I'm asking because I've noticed that over the last few years, there's been quite an influx in people asking, why do we allow this content to be made? Why do we allow these YouTubers and TikTokers and podcast creators to become rich off of the worst thing that ever happened to another person in their entire life? And it's always been an interesting question to me. And I noticed that when true crime content first became very popular on the internet, people also didn't have much of an issue with it. For the most part, people saw it as educational. They were like, hey, these people are using their platform to shine a light on these cases that maybe people don't know about as much. And they're trying to, help spread awareness. And that may have been true at the time. Before true crime became really popular online, you didn't hear a lot about some of the rarer cases. If it isn't something that really blew up and hit like national or sometimes even international news, you may not have heard about it. And that means that family was forced to go through all of this alone and try to raise awareness on their own when they were already mourning the loss of someone they loved, to a really tragic and horrifying case. However, there were always a few outliers. There were always a few people who questioned why you would want to build an entire social media platform around someone else's tragedy, something that had nothing to do with you. And that's understandable, It's difficult to say when it comes to content creators online what their true intentions are. An interesting shift has begun to come about as of about a year or so ago, and it's because of the rise of TikTok. So there were a lot of true crime YouTubers already, long before TikTok was even a thing yet, and people seemed to generally like those people for the most part, especially the ones like, what are you doing with the money you earn from creating true crime content? It's understandable that if you're doing all this research and you're putting together this script and you're making sure that you talk to the victims, families, and everything, that, that is a full-time job at that point and that you deserve financial compensation to carry that work out. Nobody's arguing that. People understand that. The problem arises when you're making like $8 million a year and very little of it is going toward assisting those victims or their families, or you're maybe doing a couple times a year some kind of lump sum, I'm donating this to Rain or I'm donating this to Thorn or something, but you never actually reach out to any of the people involved in the cases that you speak about and making sure that they don't personally need that help. But then you have people like Zavgirl. Zavgirl is a perfect example of why people are starting to hate true crime content and think that there's no such thing as ethical true crime content. You may have never heard that name before, and I couldn't fault you for that, because as far as YouTube subscriber count goes, she's extremely small. As of the filming of this video, she has 91.6K subscribers, which is nothing to groan about. I mean, a lot of us would be more than happy to have that kind of subscriber count, but it's certainly a blink in the eye of YouTube. You're gonna get drowned out by every other true crime creator when you have such a small subscriber count. And before I explain to you why people are so upset with this girl, I just want to read to you her YouTube bio because I think you'll appreciate this. Hello everyone, thank you so much for stopping by. I really appreciate every single one of you. Kissy face. This is a true crime channel. I feel it is really important to give victims of these tragic crimes a voice when they don't have one. I want to get the whole community involved by starting the discussion and gaining new insight by listening to what you all have to say. I have this passion for understanding human behavior, which drove me to study and receive my bachelor's in psychology. So this girl has a bachelor's in psychology. She understands better than most average people on YouTube how the human brain works and what causes someone to become like a sociopath or a serial killer or something. So you'd think that she would have a lot more dignity and a lot more respect for victims than anyone else on the platform, right? That she'd potentially even be calling out these multi-million sub creators for not using enough psychology in their arguments, for not being dignified enough. Nope, She went the totally opposite direction. During the beginning of the pandemic, there was a case surrounding an 11-year-old boy named Gannon Stouch. And unfortunately, although a lot of people heard the beginning of the case, because we all went into lockdown and everyone was stressed out about that, it kind of got swept under the rug and a lot of people forgot about it. But if you need a refresher, basically this little boy was found on the side of the road in a suitcase. Someone had to open that suitcase and see that one day while just at work. And it turned out his stepmother did this to him. I don't want to go into his case too heavily because it's extremely triggering and upsetting, and it's very fresh, being that she only just ended up getting, chucked behind bars for what she did to him, and his family is obviously in a lot of mourning over this. It's a little boy. What could an 11-year-old boy have done to deserve that kind of treatment? Zavgirl decided to cover Gannon's case. And while covering it, she decided, you know what? I'm not getting enough views compared to these other larger true crime creators who are covering this. I want to get more subscribers. I need more eyes on my video. How do I do that? She decided, instead of reaching out to some of the larger content creators and going, hey, could we go on like a live stream together so that I can, help my audiences understand what's going on with this case? Or instead of reaching out to, some lawyers or something to get their perspective on it, or even to Gannon's father to ask him, hey, I know that I have a smaller platform on YouTube, but is there anything that my subscriber base can do to help you? Nope. She decided to use the Freedom of Information Act to obtain the autopsy photos of this 11-year-old child. She obtained those. Not only did she share them with her subscribers to make her video more sensational, someone who has a bachelor's in psychology and knew what this would do to his family, she put them on her Patreon, and for a mere $3 a month, you had access to this little boy's dead body. Do I need to say more? Do I need to explain further why people are pissed at her? And what's even worse is when you look at her social blade, she hasn't suffered that much, not compared to a lot of other YouTubers that have gone through scandals and cancellations. I would hardly call this canceled. She had a few days where she lost some, but she's basically just gotten all of them back afterward. And I don't see a lot of people on YouTube, especially other true crimers, discussing this right now. I think a lot of true crimers with millions of subscribers need to be calling her out on their platforms and talking about why this is unethical and why this makes people distrust the true crime community online. Because this is a nightmare, having this happen to someone that you love, especially a child. And all I'm seeing is a handful of TikTokers talking about it. And this is the kind of thing I'm talking about when I ask, is there a way to ethically discuss true crime? Because even if you are claiming you do it for the right reasons, like she did in her bio, saying, oh, I want to learn the psychology behind why people carry out harmful acts like this, or, oh, I want to know what it's like for the family or the victims when they're going through this, and I want to spread awareness and help them however I can. At what point do the numbers matter more than the victim? At what point do you stop realizing why you started this work and you become a monster who only cares about the money? How can you ethically create true crime content? Is there still a way for that to happen? That's my actual question for all of you. I would love to know in the comments, what is your perspective on this? What do you think about what this woman did? And do you think that there is a way forward to create true crime content for the right reasons, or is it so oversaturated that it's just a numbers game now?